Hello and welcome to this show, Gaining Client Insight using Azure Log Capabilities and Free Community Solution. During this show, I will be showing a bunch of QR codes like the one that I'm showing right now, which will link to my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me and keep your phone out because, as I said, there will be a lot of QR codes during this show, and remember to keep your phone out in case you want to keep those for the future. My name is Morten. I'm an MVP in security. I'm also an Azure hybrid MVP. And as you can see, I'm working very much with a lot of Azure and M365 technologies. And I'm really a fan of the Microsoft stack, as you can see. The objective of this show is to kind of give two angles of a lot of information. So the ones of you who are new to Azure or new to Azure Log Analytics or are just interested in learning some new, I hope that you will learn some new things about these new capabilities that I'm going to present to you. I've actually also provided to you a showcase for you to use and download, which is called Client Inspector. It is ready to use, it's free, it's for the community, and it will show you a lot of cool stuff about how you can use logging capabilities and bring back a lot of information from your clients and then show it on dashboards and stuff like that. So that is really cool, and we'll get back to that in a few seconds. For you that have already worked with Azure Logging version 1 and are now facing some of the challenges that you have to move to version 2 by end of when it has the end of support in August 24. I hope that you will also see a lot of cool stuff here on how you can do that and how I have provided a PowerShell module that has already been downloaded almost 200,000 times, and it's shown on Microsoft Learn documentation now, and Microsoft are also showing this as an example of how you can do it. So I hope that you will also gain a lot of great insight by this. So going back to the showcase, this is a fun showcase where on the left side you can see that we have a lot of different sources of data where we want to bring in data, for example, using VMI, SIM, REST APIs, CSV files, JSON, XML. So we have a lot of different sources on a day-to-day basis, which are containing really cool data, but we want to bring back these data. For example, what are the pending Windows updates? Who are members of the local admin groups? How has is the BitLocker configuration? Is it protected? What is the firewall settings, serial number, and stuff like that? And then when we bring these data back and we store them inside a database, in this case it is the Log Analytics workspace. On top of this, we want to provide some dashboards which will actually show us all the deviation. So this is very important in if you want to have a secure environment. So good security demands to be and stay in control. That is kind of the core fundamentals in having a secure environment. So we want to have a dashboard or potentially having some alertings which will show us where we are not in control, or for example, show me all the computers which has a wrong or missing BitLocker configuration, or show me all the computers where having pending updates, which was released more than 40 days ago, which has not been installed, and so on. So this is kind of the showcase, the client inspector. This is what I'm gonna provide to you. Here's an example of one of the dashboards. This is the summary dashboard. You can see it's called client status or KPI status. So it will show all the deviations. So this detailed dashboard is only showing, reds, where we are not in control. And once you want to drill into these numbers and understand what computers is this actually that are, for example, the 73 incompliant offender AV clients, you just click on this and it will fold out, and we'll see this in a demo later on. So this is the dashboard. Here you can see this is an example of one of my customers where you on the left side you have the client dashboard, and on the right side we actually also have a similar one for the servers. And so what I'm going to provide to you today, which is free, so you can download it and you can try it out, is the Client Inspector PowerShell script. It will allow you to set up the whole infrastructure. As part of this, we're using a deployment kit. It will provide 14 workbooks, 15 dashboards, and of course, it will utilize my PowerShell module AC Log DCR Ingest PS, which is the name of the module. You might be thinking, so is this going to be very costly for me? I would say no, compared to the benefit that you gain from this, where you actually have a complete picture of your infrastructure. So in my example here at the bottom, it will show 500 clients cost roughly around 27 US dollars or 200 Danish kroners a month. So having this clear picture. So I would say it is not so expensive compared to the value, but of course you have to decide on your own if you want to go there. So going into the architecture of this, so I'm gonna touch a little bit around the old method and also the new method. So we are here on the screen. We're gonna see that in the old days we would have a data source, then we would have an REST endpoint like the PowerShell script, and it will send directly into the Log Analytics workspace. In the new method, you will see that we are now having some new intermediates. So we will now have something called a data collection endpoint (DCE), and we will have a data ingestion pipeline, and lastly we will have a data collection rule. So you would probably think, why do we need this? Isn't this making it a little bit more complex? So I'll get back to that in a few slides. So let's drill a little bit down into the old methods so we understand why we actually have these new things. So in the old days, we would apply, solutions on the back end. So we will install what to collect on the back end. And once we have installed these solutions on the back end, it was a little challenging to target what we wanted to collect. So that was one of the big challenges that I've been dealing. So for example, let's say that I install something that would allow me to collect information about Active Directory. It would actually try to run this collection from all the machines that are connected to my Log Analytics workspace. And so targeting was really challenging. Another thing was that if I was collecting some data, it would just auto-create everything inside my workspace, and I wasn't in control when in naming and stuff like that. But it worked, and it works, and it is the old method. But I was only capable of dealing with log analytics workspace as the end target. And we'll come back to that in a few seconds. As you can see, when you search on the internet, we might get a little confused because you will actually find information where it says a Azure Monitor HTTP Data Collector API is in public preview. So public preview, and now he's talking about a legacy product. What did I miss here? So the response from the product team is that this API was never released or considered as complete. So we're actually gonna update the documentation as part of this deprecation cycle. So that might be a little confusing, but I just want to highlight this. So moving on to the new cool stuff, doing I call it the log analytics version 2. So there are two methods here on the screen. On the first top one, we have the agent-based method where you install an agent. This is the agent called Azure Monitor Agent, or AMA in daily terms. It will allow you to collect a lot of different cool stuff, and I'll show that in a few slides. At the bottom, we have the API method, where we are taking data, either pushing it up into the log analytics workspace, or it will also allow us to do some pulling of the data instead. So, and then we will send it up. And so I would say the below method is kind of the any connector thinking, where we are taking any data source that you want to implement and send it up to your workspace. Whereas at the top ones, those are the agent-based data that are optimized for that. Um, so this is some of the cool guys that are actually building these great stuff. The pipeline, the DCR PMs, the log analytics program managers. So they're really, really great guys. So going back to the agent-based method. This is not actually the topic for today, but I just want to show a few things and show some slides about it, so that in case that you're really interested in learning more about that, check out these great things. So you can collect like text logs, you can do change tracking, performance counters, event logs, IIS logs, and stuff like that. So these are all ready to go sources that you can bring in through the agent, and it will allow you to collect these data. Um, so if we see here that we have the data collection rule, what is the purpose of this? So what is really cool about the DCR and having a pipeline in between is the ability to do a transformation of data. So if you think of the left side is the data source where we're collecting all the data, and on the right side we have the end goal, which in this case is the log analytics workspace. So once the data goes into the pipeline, we actually, using the DCR, we are capable of doing some transformation. So for example, if we want to remove some data, which is considered noise, and we want to remove the data due to, for example, cost optimization. So for example, we could say, think of all the events with a specific event ID, we will strip that out. So we can take all the rows where the data is with a specific filter and remove it. It could also be the other one where we are removing like a column of data which contains, for example, something which will conflict with GDPR, so for compliance purpose. So once we have removed those, it will send the data into the final destination. We can also add some data, we can merge some data. So it will really allow us to do some great things. So as you can see here, it does support to send to other destination. So think of this as today we're only having log analytics workspace, but in the future we will see more cool stuff and places where we can send the data to. So this is really, really great that we can do some great stuff in here. So, and as I said, more things are coming for the future. So it's really cool. The last slide I'm covering on the agent bases. Here you can see a lot of different blocks that are provided that you can go up and check out, and it will have some guide on how to set up all these things, and there are some easy deploy to Azure buttons where you can just click a button and it will actually deploy it for you in your own environment. So this is how you can get started using the agent-based method. So going back to the challenges on the API side, what is it that I've been struggling with in the early days when I had to learn about this? So for example, now we have to define the DCR and the table before we can actually send the data in. We need to have a data collection endpoint. The schema for the data must be defined in both the DCR and the custom table. There are some limitations on the naming side, some prohibited names, and stuff like that. So all these challenges I've been struggling with, and to mitigate or help with this, I've actually built a PowerShell module, as I mentioned before. And as of today, you can see it has almost been downloaded 200,000 times. Really proud of that. If you search on the topmost downloaded PowerShell gallery modules, it's actually on the top 500. I think the moment around 400. So I'm really proud of that. The module includes 25 functions and it is around 6,000 lines of code. And this is something that can really help you if you want to bring back data from any data source and push it into log analytics, as in this case here. I've received some really great feedback from numerous people that are using this, and this is a guy who is using this, and as he's writing at the very bottom, he was struggling to set it up by himself using the documentation and having some issues, and he was struggling with some of the same things that I was struggling with. And I got in touch with him after writing about this module on Twitter and LinkedIn. And he was saying, you can see here, it was love on first sight. It is not wrong to say that the module is a huge time saver and facilitator when working with log ingestion version 2. And no wasting time for using templates or guessing valid column or resource name, simply passing object to the module and knowing what data types match and no limits while ingesting happen. And thank you for providing a huge time saver and big productivity booster. So really happy with these great feedbacks, and also to see what the use cases have been that people are where people are using it, and I'll cover that in a few slides as well. As you can see here, Microsoft are also actually showing a link to my module if you search on the internet. So if you are interested in learning more, you can check out these articles, which will also be helping you to understand some of these capabilities, especially for you who are migrating. And I'm also covering that more on my blog page, mortenknudsen.net. So if we go a little deeper, how does it look like under the hood? This is an example of the schema that needs to be defined inside the data collection rule. On the left side, you can see a sample of these the DCRs that are being created as part of the client inspector deployment. Here is the same tables that are equivalent to the DCRs, where you also have to define the schema on here. As you can see on the right side, this particular table contains 70 custom columns containing all the information with different types like integer, boolean, dynamic fields, string fields, and stuff like that. So again, I was just saying here, what is the use case for this? You can pull in data from any third-party data source, or you can run it as part of like an inventory script and push the data up into the final destination. And on the right side, you can see some examples of how people have used this thinking. For example, you can bring back TSM log file logs, bring into log analytics because it doesn't provide good deep insight of this. Another person was collecting local printers because they wanted to replace all the local printers with some large multifunction printers. And he used it for that. PC replacement. So they were collecting information, making budgets, and looking up warranty information, Lenovo and Dell. And also some were bringing information in from various Cisco systems where, for example, in the help desk, they wanted to know which APs, Wi-Fi APs were users connecting to. Another one was using this for SQL monitoring of 1,200 SQL databases, 120 SQL servers. And he built a solution which cost him roughly $3 a month, where he can actually monitor the whole infrastructure. And he has a workbook on top of this he can use for troubleshooting as well. So it's really cool how people use this. So let's see a demo of how the client inspector will look like if you run it on a client machine. So of course this will happen in the background. The user will not see this, but I'm going to show it to you where you can actually see what's going on. In this case here, you can see that it's collecting 18 different topics. So it's right now doing the install application information. It did already the computer information, and it has already collected information from the machine, and now it's sending up the data into the pipeline through the DCR and into log analytics, and it goes really, really fast. And it runs. It takes maybe a minute or so, and it will run this typically daily, where you want to bring these information back and show that. So I will now show you what will happen here. This is running in verbose mode, and here you can see like a first time where it will check if the table has been created. And you can see here all the steps that it will do. And here's an example where the table and the DSR does not exist. So it will automatically detect that and create the table based on the data structure from the source, and it will create the DCR and set up everything for the user. So it's really, really easy for you to take any data source. It will actually also work in a merge mode. So for example, let's say that Microsoft adds a new property to, for example, the Defender AV property or the object. It will automatically add that extra property into the table, the schema, the DCR, and that means that you don't have to think about this for the future. So it works either in merge mode, as I just said, or you can use it in replace mode, where you want to force a specific set of data into it. So this is how it works. And once you have all the data in there, you can use all these different nice workbooks on top of it, where you can actually show these cool information. And I'm going to show to you here some examples, like the local admins, BitLogger, what is the status here, what machines are not running the BitLogger as I was hoping for, the inventory, what OS version and stuff like that is running. The Office package is the Office channel set correctly, is the automatic update enabled, the Defender antivirus is the real-time protection enabled, is the signature updated correctly and stuff like that. So all these great information are part of the Client Inspector script and the dashboards that comes on top of it. And it's free. It's for you to use and to learn this new logging capabilities so that you can actually implement other cool stuff that will help you on a day-to-day basis. So I will just show a little more of these. Here's an example of the customer that wanted to do some lookup into Lenovo and Dell. So remember, we brought all the information back about, so we know the serial number of the computers. And now we're actually doing a lookup of all this information into Lenovo, and it will automatically create a spreadsheet for you, and where you can see, when did I buy this computer, is the warranty still in place, the purchase date, when was it shipped, and so on. So it is just getting these data out from the Lenovo warranty site, and the data is coming initially from the Client Inspector script. So you can run this from all the different deployment tools that you prefer. Like if you have Config Manager, you have Intune, or you have any third-party deployment tool. Of course, for servers, we also have a similar one where we can do that. I'm not going to cover that today. So this is an example, and these scripts are already provided as part of the GitHub site. I will link to it later on, where you can implement this inside your Intune environment, and it will start collecting right away using remediations method. Here's an example of going under the hood to understand how does it look like, the architecture underneath here. You can see we have a lot of different tables inside our log analytics environment, and it is all custom logs, as this is something that we have prepared ourselves. And when you have these things inside your log analytics, we can look into the data, and we can see all the structure of the data and examples of how the tables look like. I'm just showing a few tables here. And this is, for example, the Windows updates. All the patches that has been installed. This is the firewall configuration. How has that set up? Is it enabled? The next one is the local admin. So it will show which users are added to the local admins group on the machine. Here's another example where it will show the actual configuration of the Defender antivirus. So I think it has like 70 different properties inside the Defender, where you can see some of them right here. So again, the data will be typically kept for 30 days. So normally when you set up a log analytics workspace, the default retention is 30 days. So you only keep the data for the last 30 days of collection, and then it will basically, go out and be removed. So from a cost perspective, the cost is very static. It's basically just the number of machines that are in there that will make the cost go up or down. Because the data size of it is typically the same, because you'll keep the data for 30 days in there. Of course, you can extend the retention to keep it for longer, but again, this is like a temporary platform for the data, and you're mostly interested in the new set of data. But of course, if you want to compare it, how did it look like, for example, for a week ago? For example, if you have you want to use it for troubleshooting purpose. Did we install any patches from a week ago until today, as an example? But this type of data is typically most interested for short-term data. Again, here is an example of how to look into the workbooks. If you go into the My Template, you can see here that we have some templates that will be installed, and it's free for you to use. And it's part of the solution. So it comes with some predefined workbooks where you have all the data, where you can drill into this and play with the data from your own environment. And here's an example of, for example, the pending updates, and you can see some cool information about what has been installed in your environment. So you also have the dashboards, like I was saying before, and where you have the summary dashboard, like I was saying, the KPI status. That's typically the one that you are bringing up on your big screen. And if you click one of these numbers, it will go into the workbook, where you can understand the name of the computer, and what machines are okay, what machines are not okay. So it's part of this here. So again, going back to the any connector, the module, the way of thinking, what is it doing? So on the left side again, we have the data in phase, where we have you can use any types of data that you have in your environment. We will do some data manipulation because we want to strip off some data. We might want to add some more information to it. For example, what computer was it collected from? When was it collected? And we will do that as part of the data manipulation phase. On the third phase, we are doing some checks around the table, the DCR, the schema, and we will handle all these things as part of that phase. So is the schema there? Is having the correct properties? Do we need to add some properties? Are we in merge or override mode? Do we need to create a table that are missing? Then we're doing the data upload. And the data upload, it will automatically calculate the size of the data, so that it can actually do some batching of this, and you can overwrite it as well. And then lastly, I have a few functions that are used as part of as part of running this in general. So how do you do this? How do you define it? It's very, very simple. So you basically define, what table do I want to send the data into? What is the structure of the DCR naming, the convention? And here's an example of how you can define that. Then you will define which data to send up. And in this case, I'm doing a get a sim instance, looking the class, the BIOS class, putting that into the data variable here. Another example is below the get MP computer status or MP preference. I'm getting that into the data variable. And then I'm doing the changes of the data, looking in, do I need to convert this? Do I want to add the collection time, the computer information? And that's all you can see some of the functions that I'm calling here are the ones that are part of this module. So, and we'll see a demo of this in a few seconds here. So here's an example where you can see I'm collecting information about what software was installed on the machine. Here we can see the actual data that are in the record number 0, or the first record. And you can see here that a lot of garbage or noise in here, which we really do not want to send into our log analytics. So we want to remove that, and we use that by using some of the predefined functions in here. Once we run that, it has actually stripped those data, that noise away from the string. So this is a way for you to take any data source and make sure that it is in the correct format before we want to send it in. So it's kind of doing the transformation on the endpoint side instead of doing it on the pipeline side. Here we are adding some more properties like user logged on, computer FQDN, the computer name, the collection time, and we can see that these properties has now been added into the schema structure. And we are now validating, are there any naming conflicts which will potentially make the upload fail because it is prohibited namings, and it will automatically correct these errors in case that we identify some issues. And again, it does all these things. So this is part of the module, all these predefined functions, which will really help you to do the great stuff you want to use. All right. So lastly, again, here we're just sending the data up. You don't need to change anything. It's all done for you. So it is sending the data up and creating the structure and stuff like that. So to wrap it up again, I hope that this has been really helpful for you. There are tons of information available for you to try this on your own. And on the left side here, you can see on the GitHub side, there are more videos for you to watch if you feel interested in learning some more. There's a lot of details in the documentation. You can also check out the modules itself. It includes the help in here. You can check out the release notes in case that I do add some more features or fix some bugs. Then you can keep updated inside that as well. As I mentioned, I have a deployment kit which you can run. It will help you set up the complete environment for you so that you can run everything inside your own demo environment. And the only thing you need to do is that you will define a few information inside this script. And once it has deployed all the things like creating an app inside your environment, in your Azure ID or Entra ID, it will create the log analytics workspace if you have not if you're not reusing an existing one. The DCR, DCE, it will set up the permissions for you. The output of this are the ones on the left bottom side, where it will output a bunch of variables that you need to put into your client inspector script where the header is located. So you put that into there, make a few changes, and then you can start to run your demos on the last step here. As I'm writing at the bottom, have some patience because it will take some time for the pipelines to initially be running. I'm writing here 10 to 15 minutes. When I did it a recent deployment, it actually took almost 30 minutes. So it will depend. It is cloud, and so crossing your fingers that it will come there, and it will come. But if it's not, the data is not there, try to run the query again, and then eventually it will be there. And after this, it will come very fast. So it's just the initial deployment where the pipeline kicks in that will take some time. So as mentioned, here's the link for the deployment kit to get you started. And the only thing you pay for is the actual consumption. But I was mentioning it before, the cost for this and for testing is very, very low compared to the value. But of course, you have to decide on your own for yourself. So I hope that this has been really helpful for you. If you want to learn more, check out my blog, mortenknudsen.net. You can also email me directly. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can follow me on GitHub. You can follow me on Twitter. And at the bottom, I'm providing you some the direct links of some of these things. And I really hope that this has been something that you can use for your daily work. So in the PowerPoint, there are a lot more slides, and you can see here right now on page 61. And if I go all the way down, you can see here that it goes to 73. So you can actually look into more details if you want to see what is being collected, the more details in here. And I'm not covering this in this presentation, but if you want, you can learn some more in here. So thank you very much. Have fun. Have a great day.